we came through it fairly steadily. We've always experienced sort of very good growth year on year, and we've had a couple of years of sort of static growth, if you like. People have got machines spindles turning, cutting materials. They're going to use cutters, they're going to use tips, etc. And it's our job to be there and supply that as they need it.
Hello and welcome to the MTDCNC podcast. I'm your host, Joe Reynolds, and I'm a proud member of the MTDCNC team. Joining me today is Tom Skabula from MTDCNC and Paul Ensor from ITC. Paul, welcome. How are you doing?
Hi, Joe. How are you, Joe? Yeah, very good. Thank you very much.
Good. We've done lots of videos with you, probably 20, 30 videos. Have you done a podcast?
I don't think I've ever done a podcast before. I've always been filmed. I don't think one...
I can turn the camera on if it makes you more comfortable.
Probably not, to be honest.
Yeah, so that's it. We've been in today filming technical corners. They'll be on the channel any day now. How was the experience?
Yeah, well, for me, it was very, very good. Obviously, today we've had some new people on board, a couple of new people from ITC and obviously new people from MTD as well. So I stood up, did my usual piece. I think in my 23 years at ITC now, I've probably done maybe about 20 of these technical corners and bits of filming at open houses and whatever. So I'm quite used to it, really.
Veteran.
Does that just mean I'm old? But yeah, even though I've done quite a few, you still stand there and, lights, camera, action, and the nerves come up, really. So what was quite enjoyable today, though, is obviously seeing the new guys, obviously on both sides from MTD and ITC, having to stand up in the spotlight. So for me, it was quite nice, standing the other side of the camera, watching the other guys squirm for a bit. For
sure. And on your piece, we talked about various things, but UK manufactured products in particular. For the people listening to the podcast who maybe don't know of ITC, but maybe have heard of you and don't know the scale of the business, just tell us a little bit about the company.
So the company was formed sort of 25 odd years ago, originally just importing a carbide product from America and supplying that through the UK. But this was back in the days when a carbide end mill was either square end or ball nose, and obviously through dealing with aerospace and a lot of other associated manufacturers, radiuses, chamfers, necking, etc. are always commonplace and people wanted them. Originally, we used to use subcontract companies to do that, and obviously when that level of business built up to a stage which dictated that we could invest in machinery, we did. Once you then go down that road of sort of investing in machines, the demand then grows from there. So from simple modifications, it then became, apparent that people then wanted bespoke cutters, bespoke manufactured items, etc. So we started manufacturing those as well, and then obviously that leads on to manufacturing your standard base product of catalogue items, which has grown over those years. We've now got 2 factories back to back over in Tamworth, housing over 30 CNC cutter grinding machines, all based around producing of solid carbide product in various formats, from micro cutters up to large scale, large diameters, in whichever form you need.
See, we've always bought cutters in when we've needed them. So how long does it actually take to make a cutter, let's say a 10 mil?
I can't tell you that because otherwise you know how much it costs.
Rough ballpark.
It's like any sort of manufacturing process. It's the initial setup of the machine. So any CNC milling machine or a cutter grinding machine, etc., you need to set it all up first. You need to get the process stable first. So for argument's sake, it could take you an hour to set the machine up to produce your first cutter. On a 10 mil cutter, a standard cutter, you'll be talking maybe 4 pieces an hour, so 15 minutes a tool. Depends on how quick you run the machines as well. So we sell end mills to predominantly people who are doing CNC milling, and part of our business is trying to improve their cutting conditions, etc. So we would walk in and say, well, we've got a cutter that will do that job in, X amount of time less. So running the tool quicker. The same would apply on the grinding machines. Depending on the grinding wheels that you buy and the actual grinding machines that you buy, you can actually grind the cutters more quickly. We don't tend to do that. We tend to run our machines fairly steadily. You get a better surface finish on the tool when it's actually ground, better accuracy. The wheels last longer, the machines last longer. So the finished product is actually a better quality item. So just by taking a little bit of time is actually more beneficial in the long run.
Ever thought about a career in politics?
I can sidestep anything, really, Joe.
That was beautifully answered. Well done. But yeah, no, I'm blessed to have been to ITC. In fact, we're due back in the next week or two to do some more video media. But you mentioned 30 machines. It's huge, isn't it? That's a lot of technology under one roof, or two.
Yeah,
roofs.
and you know, everybody's interested about the cutter grinding machines, but there's all the support equipment that goes with that as well. So to start manufacturing, it's not just having about a cutter grinding machine. Potentially, you need even simple machines like rod cutting off machines. You know, at the end of the day, it's carbide. You can't just cut it with a slitting saw. It has to be a diamond wheel, etc., to cut it efficiently, which then has to be under oil. So there's a specialised machine just to cut the rod. Once you've cut the rod, you might want to spin diameters onto it, so you need blanking machines, etc. So all of this needs to take part before you actually put it onto a cutter grinding machine. Once you've actually made something on a cutter grinding machine, you need to be able to know what you've made. So then you've got your inspection equipment, etc., that needs to follow on behind that. So yeah, it's a big operations with all the ancillary equipment that goes into it, as well as the cutter grinding machines. Yeah.
And you, sorry, Joe.
Yeah, carry on.
And you can do all this in-house?
It is all in-house at Tamworth, yeah. So in Tamworth, Staffordshire, as I say, we've got two factories which are back-to-back to one another. We originally started in a very small industrial unit with a couple of machines many years ago, and as it's grown very, very rapidly and we've invested in new machinery, we had to move to bigger premises. We bought a new factory. I can remember being there when we first purchased that factory, and we laughed because we put the couple of machines that we had up in the corner of this factory and played football in the other side. But within sort of 3-4 years, we'd actually filled that factory full of grinding machines. You know, we needed more room. We were lucky enough to get the unit directly at the back of us and expand and go through there. So we're at the stage now where we've just had 2 new machines delivered, and we're actually looking at the space that we've now got left to actually put more machines in as well. So
you'll be buying industrial estates soon, won't you? You'll be having them all.
Well, yeah, global domination, I reckon.
In terms of stock holding, it's no secret that some manufacturers have had issues with sourcing the product. You know, carbide end mills in your case. What's your stocking levels like to stop things like that happening?
Even through lockdown, even through COVID, which you know people used as an excuse, and there's some genuine reasons behind it as well. But we banned figures around about having 100,000 pieces lie on the shelf at any one time. That's our own brand product as well as product from, say, our associate companies like Whittier, etc. We obviously are in an environment where we're selling tools to people who are manufacturing components. They've got deadlines. You know, they can't afford to wait a week to get a cutting tool, which then they need to put on a machine to then make a component, which they then need to sell. They want to be ringing us up or going online or whatever and purchasing a product today and getting it there reliably tomorrow. You know, and that's the sort of turnaround that we look at. Having all that stock on the shelf at Tamworth, yes, there's a lot of expense in that, but it does allow us to offer that service.
Yeah, and you mentioned Whittier. Obviously, for the people who aren't aware, you make a lot of solid carbide tools in Tamworth. But you mentioned Whittier. I know you've got other brands such as Bass and many others, and Big Kaiser. What's that offer you, being able to offer OEM product that you manufacture as well as third party?
Yeah, so as big as our operation is at Tamworth, you know, we are limited by size, number of machines, etc. Many years ago, we had an association with a company called Hanita, which produced solid carbide cutters, which fitted into our portfolio very well and just extended the range of product that we could offer. They subsequently got bought out by Whittier, who bought lots of other companies and put them all under the Whittier umbrella. And all these various companies have a portfolio, whether it be taps, drilling, milling, solid, indexable, etc. And it all adds to the portfolio of product that we can bring to the market. A couple of years ago, we also became the UK agents for Big Die Shower and Big Kaiser. So Kaiser is Swiss boring equipment and Big Die Shower is the tool holding system. And that really introduced us really spindle forward. So any application, any tooling that's from a CNC milling application, especially from the spindle nose forward, we can offer tool holders, tools, whether it be solid, indexable, roughing, finishing, etc.
But you've got all them tools, but you've also got the team behind it as well, haven't you? So you've got the tech team who, if I'm struggling with a job, can come in and say which tool would be best for that application.
Yeah, it's quite funny, really. We get asked quite often, with the portfolio of product that we have, which products do we favour? Do we supply an ITC product? Do we supply a Whittier product? Or, one of the other brands that we have? The simple answer is that we use our expertise and knowledge of both the customer, the materials, the machines, etc., to give the customer the best solution to what they're looking for. Not every customer wants to be able to run at 1,000,000 miles an hour and save a few seconds on a component. Some people are just making a one-off and a two-off, and they need it to be reliable, and they need to make sure that they don't scrap the part because it's a prototype, and they've only literally got one billet of material. So you're not going to walk in and go, "Oh, I've got this, Concord type tool that run 1,000,000 miles an hour, but potentially could break and scrap the part." Those sort of customers maybe just want a more reliable tool. There are people in high production facilities that, every second counts. So if we can offer a tool that runs a little bit quicker, lasts a bit longer, that's where the cost savings will come to them. So having this great portfolio, and like you say, having the staff behind it, knowing what the products are capable of, having experience of running the tools, having the experience of the materials and the machines, etc. Even to a degree, we need to know a little bit about tool holding and work clamping as well, because it all affects the cutting conditions. And that comes through years of expertise, and nothing stands still. So the longer you do this job, the more you learn, and everything's being developed year on year. So new strategies come out. One of the latest things to come along is sort of, tricoidal milling, eye machining. People call it different methods, but it's something that's come along really in the last couple of years, and it's really hit the forefront of the market nowadays. So we respond by producing cutters for that market, but then we're learning the strategies, learning the software packages, and what the tools need to be capable of, and what people are looking to do with the tools, developing tools, geometries and styles around those methods. But who's to say that tomorrow, some other sort of CAD cycle might come out and, they need something completely different and something else will be the vogue.
That was my next question, really. You've been in this industry some time. You won't say how long, Paul, because it may age you slightly, and I can't believe you've been doing it since you were 4.
Yeah.
But it's but what is next? Tricoidal milling. Most people know of it now, or whatever you want to call it. There's talk of barrel milling, conical nose barrel milling, and lens milling, things like that. But what is the next big thing?
Do you know what? It's impossible to say, really. As manufacturing develops, the use of materials, that is really what is generating these cutting cycles. So a couple of years ago, more than a couple of years ago, you're talking about the mould and die industry. Everything needed to be cutting at 60 Rockwell, for instance. So a lot of methods and programming systems were developed around these sort of high-speed machining methods for the harder materials. That sort of died back a little bit. You go into aerospace and they're developing new materials to work more efficiently within aero engines or subframes, etc. And as they develop these new materials, obviously they have their own sort of constraints on cutting. So, Inconel you can't cut at 100 meters velocity. So you need a geometry that's going to work better at taking a larger cut slower, whereas other materials want to be cut quickly. So it's developing what is coming through from a manufacturing side, really, and keeping abreast of the market, really.
Yeah, and like I say, a lot of it's driven by either a change in material type or often technology such as the cam itself. Obviously, a lot of these tools are limited by the software being used on the machine. Yeah,
and quite often, we talk about tricoidal milling. Quite often I get asked for people saying, "Oh, I want a tricoidal mill. This, it looks good. I want to do it." And then when you actually go into it, they haven't got a CNC machine that's capable of enough read ahead and fast enough on the acceleration to use tricoidal milling methods on the machine anyway. So it sort of negates what the technology is telling them to do, and you have to look at what they're doing and give them the best solution for the machinery they've got, for instance.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. But just finally, to wrap up, how are things at ITC? Is business kind?
Yeah, obviously, everybody's heard enough about COVID and, the last couple of years. It took its toll on everybody. We came through it fairly steadily. We've always experienced sort of very good growth year on year, and we've had a couple of years of sort of static growth, if you like. But compared with a lot of other people who've seen massive declines, we've survived really well. So we're back on the up. The main thing is that what we supply is a consumable product. If people have got machines spindles turning, cutting materials, they're going to use cutters, they're going to use tips, etc. And it's our job to be there and supply that as they need it.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for your time today, both in the technical corner, which is available on our channel very, very soon. Thanks for your time on the podcast. Tom, enjoy it?
Yeah, it's been
the first
great.
one?
Yeah, it's been great. Enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Not very red at all, Tom, though.
No.
There you are. Thank you very much to Tom, to Paul, and as always, the biggest thank yous to you guys at home for listening.
Thanks for listening to the MTD podcast. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe and leave a rating and review. Find more episodes on mtdcnc.com.